All right, friends. We're going to finish this first book. Remember, there's 3 books. There's the pipeline, and then there's the pipeline 2 and the pipeline 3. So we're going to finish the pipeline 1 here in this video. Okay. I actually had done it at the animal shelter, but then I think one of the dogs must have broke my microphone because when I got home, I had no audio. So we're going to do it again here. And here we go. Chapter 21, Friends. After the interview, Amy, Bob, Ben, Mara, Sal, and Teddy stayed the night in the lieutenant's house. They all felt the need for the comfort of each other's company. Amy opened a few of her father's best bottles of wine. This seemed like a fitting occasion. They sat around and just talked most of the night. How did we not see it? Amy asked, speaking primarily to Bob, who had known Jim the longest. You know, looking back, when we were kids, Jim was always trying to get me to do things. He always wanted to take a shortcut and needed an accomplice to blame it on if we got caught, Bob replied. I can't tell you how many times I got in trouble because of him. He was an amazing liar. I thought he had changed when he contacted me about reporting on your project. I guess not, Bob continued. You know, Mara chimed in, if you think about it, it was a classic abusive relationship. Maybe he didn't hit you, but he tried to control you and alienate you from your friends. He knew Ben cared about you and that you had been close for years. It makes sense now why he picked Ben to pin as the traitor. His goal was to create a void between you two, to get Ben away from you. They had to admit she had an excellent point. I think he was jealous, Sal added. You were getting all of the attention. It was supposed to be both of you, or him. I think he saw you as the means to catapult his success. Your determination attracted him to you in the first place. He thought he could hang on your coattails and ride your wave to success. But when you got all the attention, it made him angry. You know what I think? Teddy spoke up. I think he saw an easy route and took it. They offered him a lot of money and a cushy job. He thought he could cheat the system and not have to work for it. Even I know that never works, he joked. Ben wasn't saying much. You could tell the whole thing affected him deeply. Mara's dad was going to jail again. Amy was almost taken away from him forever, and her dad was gone. He was much too sensitive of a person. He didn't have anything to add. He just held Mara's hand tightly, and she rubbed his back comfortingly. Then he finally spoke up. All I know is, if I ever see him again, he stopped and looked down, just shaking his head. It's okay, Amy said. Dad said you don't know who your true friends are until you put it to the test. He was right. I, we, wouldn't have been better off not knowing his true nature. At least now we know. They all nodded. I'm so lucky to have all of you, she trailed off. Amy couldn't help but notice that each group member perceived Jim's actions and motives differently, and how each person drew from their own personal experiences and came to their own conclusions. However, they had very different conclusions. Each one was just as valid and accurate as the next. It made an everlasting impression on her that would carry her for the rest of her life. We all come from different walks of life, it occurred to her, and we all have our unique road. And one thing that cannot come into question is somebody else's reality. Because their world is based on their reality, which creates their perception, and their perception is their reality. She was thankful for her group of friends and the experiences that she had been through. She learned so much, which was priceless. She used to think that all she needed was her father and Jim. Now she knew that her father would die for her, and Jim had no loyalty to anybody but himself. After her father died, Jim went to prison, she felt alone. Now she knew that she had not only just the most incredible group of friends, but a family she could trust. It was put to the test, and it passed. She thought about what her father said. He was right, of course, very right, it turns out. She was lucky. She was never alone. Not really. Chapter 22. The conclusion. The investigation opened up a whole can of worms. The corruption was much more invasive than anyone had ever expected. It brought on an internal affairs audit of the entire system, which turned the whole American administration on its side. This story would give the media a lot of real news to report on for a long time. After the dust cleared and Amy returned to her office in New York and her work on the pipeline, her weekly dinner dates with her friends, and her life returned to normal. During their weekly interview, Bob asked her this question: "You've done the seemingly impossible. What do you think your next project will be?" Amy thought about it for a moment and replied, "Well, if there's one thing that has been brought to light, there's much there's much work must be done to make this country great again. It almost cost me my life, and it cost my father his, to do what's right. It's very apparent that greed and corruption are crippling this nation and preventing it from moving forward and growing." She sighed. "My next project will examine our government and how it works." "What do you mean, more specifically?" Bob asked. "I don't think any politician should hold office for more than 8 years," she replied. "We also need to address how much congressmen and senators get paid. People shouldn't seek those offices for the salary. They should seek them for the desire to make a change in our country." "That sounds like another David versus Goliath scenario, but then again, you're used to that," Bob pointed out. "If the people want it, they'll have to do it. Besides, my father once told me that nothing worth it ever comes easy. That hard work and the return you get from it are relative. I believe he was correct. I haven't backed down from a challenge yet, and I don't intend to start now," she stated boldly. "I just have one more question for you," Bob continued. "Okay," she replied. "Will you go with me as my date to Ben and Mara's wedding?" "Yes," she said, smiling at him. Clay Gentry was the ringleader behind the whole thing. They caught him trying to leave the country in his private jet. Like Mara's father, all the others turned on him right away. But it worked out because the politicians turned on them. That night, 27 arrests were made. 8 were at Global, including Jim, and the rest were at the State Department, Congress, and the Senate. The courts decided to make examples of them and awarded them the highest possible sentences. Fast forward 10 years. Global Water Corp, or at least what was left of it, moved its company to China, where it reportedly is still quite successful. The pipeline took on a life of its own. After a few years, it became its corporation, and shareholders bought stock. Even a few of the same shareholders with GWC stock traded to the pipeline. Amy, Ben, Mara, and Bob were heads of the board of directors for the new United Pipeline Corp, or UPC. The results of their hard work were noticeable everywhere you looked. Every state had enough water, and as a result, the cost of food went down. Not only that, but the need to ship fruits and vegetables over long distances had also diminished. People could buy local fruits and vegetables at an affordable rate. Fresh water and locally grown fresh foods resulted in healthier, happier people. Factories opened up and people regained a sense of pride in their country. Shopping and buying products made in America became important to them again, and easier because unemployment was at an all-time low. Most people had access to childcare, health care, and education because they had jobs. With the money they saved on welfare, unemployment, food stamps, and disaster relief, state and federal governments were able to put more money into parks, schools, roads, and programs intended to help educate people. And even despite all of that, they were still able to lower taxes. The country was prosperous again. Sal was appointed to a permanent position in the Detroit office and returned to his family. Teddy went to work for a construction company in Baton Rouge near his mother, where he continued his education. When he graduated from college with a degree in engineering, You have to listen to the rest of the book to understand what the is about. Sorry. The whole group was there to cheer him on. He kept in touch with Amy, who would visit him and his mother from time to time. Ben and Amy Ben joined Amy in working on the pipeline. Eventually, Mara and Ben were appointed diplomatic positions with the federal government to speak to other countries about their water issues and how they can help to improve them. Amy had accomplished what she had set out to achieve. She helped change the course of history and improve the country in more ways than she had ever imagined. Mara got to go to other countries and help them find water. She also got to help preserve and protect hundreds of ecosystems and save countless animal species by helping provide safe, healthy habitats for them to live in. Ben and Mara got married. Bob and Amy began dating and were happy. She so he was granted full access as their lead correspondent. He eventually won his Pulitzer for his work on the Common Sense article that ultimately altered history. It would take 25 years to complete the pipeline project, and by then they would have to go back and repair it. The project was never fully completed. They would continue to build it, add to it, improve it, and fix it forever. As other countries learned about it and joined the pipeline, it became an international project. Over the next 100 years, the results will be forever woven into Earth's history. Tragedies such as floods, droughts, starvation, disease, famine, and the lack of clean water would be forgotten. Countries would join together in the cause to help prevent those events from ever happening again. And as a result, peace treaties would be created in areas that had hardly seen peace in their entire histories. The need for water and to end suffering would become too much to ignore. There would no longer be a third world. It would become one world, working together for humanity. Differences would be put aside for the good of the people. Pipes and machinery were made in steel factories instead of tanks and missiles. People would come to look back at this time that we live in today and refer to it as the Second Dark Ages, when disease, starvation, droughts, and floods, wars, greed, and corruption ruled the land, and 2/3 of the world's population did not have access to clean water. The names of the people who helped put these events into action would be remembered, written into history books, and taught in classrooms. The lesson wasn't as much about the pipeline and how it altered the course of history. It was taught to students as a lesson, and that lesson was that you can make a difference. The ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Steve Jobs. Wild-eyed visionaries may dream of a world without need. That's me, but H.G. Wells said it. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. Desmond Tutu. The end. Prologue. Amy had hoped to be battling government corruption by now. She had set her sights on making considerable changes in term limits and campaign funding. But here she sits at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night in her depressing, dimly lit office, wondering how she will deal with this new problem. One she never saw coming. She only thought the fight between the pipeline and Global Water Corp was big. She was so naive. This was colossal, damn near impossible. But if the size of the fight was relative to the problem, this was certainly the case here. This problem was enormous, and way more deadly than the water problem could ever be. Her phone rings. It startles her out of her thoughts. She answers. Hello? She sounds gloomy. She knows that only bad news comes at this time of night. It's happening again. Where? She asks. Everywhere, is the reply. All right, we start the next book in the next chapter.